DFCRadio.com.
Welcome to A Girl in a Garden on DFCRadio.com. This is your host, Emily, and today is March 30th, the last day of the month. And I will say, in Northern California, spring is definitely here, and it's beautiful. Last week, I told you all that I was having surgery, which I did on Thursday, and then I stayed in bed for two and a half days, and I ended up getting out and going for a walk on Saturday afternoon and headed out to Bodega Head in Northern California, and it was absolutely beautiful out there. Went on a little nature walk, saw all the wildflowers and succulents in bloom. Ice plants love to grow on the cliffs. It's kind of almost like Mendocino out there. It's just beautiful. So went to the beach, loved it, got a nice walk, nice sea breezy air, and yeah, spring is here. It was lovely and kind of a nice relaxing weekend. So now I'm feeling better and back at work and back to recording A Girl in a Garden. So if you didn't know it, tomorrow is April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. And April Fool's Day is celebrated every year the first day of April on the day of when people play practical jokes and hoaxes on each other. The jokes and their victims are known as April Fools. Hoax stories may be reported by the press and other media on this day and explained on subsequent days. Popular since the 19th century. The day is not a national holiday, but it is well known in Canada, Europe, Australia, Brazil, and the United States. So here's my question. What is the best practical joke you have played or has been played on you? Love to hear from you. Tell me on A Girl in a Garden on Facebook. And I will say for me, I am extremely gullible. And I have believed some of the stupidest things. And I think partially it's because of my dad. He is someone, you'll ask him a question and he'll just answer you straight faced. And sometimes it will take you a few years to realize oh my gosh, my dad has been completely joking around with me and I had no idea and I believed him on so many things. So, haha, funny. But yeah, I'm gullible and I still need to think of a good April Fool's prank to play at work tomorrow. Now, this Sunday is also Easter. And Easter is, let's see, what is Easter? Easter is also known as Resurrection Sunday. And it's a festival or holiday celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, described in the New Testament as of having 3 days after his crucifixion by the Romans. Now, the week before Easter is called Holy Week, and it contains the days of Easter. You have Holy Thursday, which is coming up, the Last Supper, and it's preceded foot washing, as well as Good Friday, crucifixes of Jesus, and then you have Easter Sunday. And I grew up in a Catholic home. My parents went to Catholic schools. My dad went to a Catholic college. We grew up Catholic. We did our first communions and our confirmations and baptisms and all that stuff. And 35 years later, none of us go. So what is Easter to me? It is an excuse to hang out with my family on Sunday. So I hope everyone else has a great Sunday, no matter what your beliefs are. It's always a good excuse to see your family. So Easter's coming up. And you know what? One of my last memories of Easter is my mom used to make us go to Mass. and we would go to Hawaii every year for spring break, and Easter would sometimes fall on that week. And we were in Kaanapali, which is right outside the city of Lahaina. And I remember having to dress up for Mass in the nice hot weather and sit outside in folding chairs of the small little Catholic church in Lahaina and get bit by flies. And for some reason, my mom kept yelling at us to sit still. And we were old enough to sit still, but it was just uncomfortable. And we were being bit by flies. And we were sitting outside. And yeah, it was white. It was beautiful. But I think that was one of the last masses we ended up going to. The family just kind of decided not for us anymore. So I just still remember that on Easter. So instead, I'm going to go hang out with my family, play a little bit of Chubby Bunny, have some Bloody Marys, and hang out with the kids. So sounds much better than going to Mass to me, personally. What else is going on in April? Well, we have a few gardening events coming up, and more information can be found on A Girl in a Garden. But on April 4th, Go Tomato Consulting, which is Steve Godo, one of the best tomato people out there, is going to be talking at the Greenery Nursery and Garden Shop. There's talks at 10:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. You can get more information from the website at Greenery Nursery. That's GreenryNrsy.com. And their address is 742 East Olive Avenue, Turlock, California, 95380. Steve's tomato classes fill up and they do have limited room, so you will need to contact the store if you need additional information. Let's see. Also, a Customer Appreciation Day on April 10th at Urban Roots from 11 to 4 p.m. And their website is urbanrootstampa.com. They're going to have food trucks, raffles, samples, live music, vendors, and 15% off the entire store. And their address is 1130 North Dale Mabry Highway in Tampa, Florida, 33618. And on April 11th, another Customer Appreciation Day. This one is at Green Fire Hydro Garden and Organic Supply from 11 to 3 p.m. You can find out more information at facebook.com/greenfiresacramento. They'll have vendors, free music, samples. I just said that wrong. They would have vendors, free samples, and music, not free music. And up to 30% off on selected items. And they're located on 3230 Auburn Boulevard in Sacramento, California, 95821. So those are some fun gardening events, and I know that April also means 420 is coming up, and there's all kinds of great gardening events then. So getting to today's show, I'm still kind of on my spring cleaning kick. I think I talked a little bit about it last week. So I've been throwing stuff out, donating, giving everything a deep clean. And I'm finding a bunch of odds and ends of cleaning products. And that reminds me, not all product combinations are good. And maybe I've been watching a whole bunch of Breaking Bad this last weekend when I took some days off, kind of binge watching it. So let's talk some chemicals. What cleaning combinations are bad? And then also I will be talking with Laura from Farmscape. And this interview was done last year, but I actually ran into her at the San Francisco Flower and Garden Show a few weekends ago. And I just had to replay this because she has some great information on gardening, and Farmscaping is a pretty cool company. They do some things. Instead of gardening, why can't you have farmscaping? And definitely check that one out. And then also an update, Gardening in 2 Minutes, shade vegetables from the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardeners. So please remember to check out all the shows on dfcradio.com. Monday, we have the Beer 30 show, talking craft beer at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. Tuesday, 5 p.m., obviously, A Girl in a Garden, Adventures in Urban Gardening. And after this is Grow with Grubby Cup at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Wednesday, we have Heavy T's Grow Show with Heavy T, Dr. Duff, Horty Chris, and guests. And that starts at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every Wednesday. They also give out some great gear. Call in, ask your grow questions, get some cool prizes. And if you are on the go and you do not have access to the Listen Now button, you can also download the DFC radio apps. They have Android and iPhone apps. Look up DFC radio on the App Store or Play Store. I think it's on your Droid. And you can download the app and listen when you are on the go. You can also browse through the archives for all of the shows on DFC Radio if you happen to miss a live show. So we're going to take a brief break, hear from A Girl in a Garden sponsors, and if you are interested in becoming a sponsor, please send me an email, agirlinagarden@gmail.com. And then once we get back from our sponsors, we will hear from Laura at Farmscape.
Don't worry about a thing. Every little thing gonna be alright.
We're listening to DFC Radio.
Here at Green Grow, we take organic gardening seriously. With our mycorrhizae products, you'll increase growth and help reduce the need to replace old, worn-out soil. We help provide electrolytes and maximize nutrient intake to make your indoor garden lush and green. So give your plants the strength that they need and breathe life into your soil with Green Grow. Find us at your local nursery or visit us at thegreengrow.com. That's thegreen.com.
You are listening to the beautiful Emily Walter on DFCRadio.com.
A Girl in a Garden quick tip. Bees only become aggressive if their hive is being threatened. Many gardeners enjoy tending their garden while bees hover nearby.
DFCRadio.com.
Welcome to A Girl in a Garden on DFCRadio.com. This is your host, Emily, and today I'm speaking with Laura from Farmscape, and she is the Bay Area Regional Director and co-owner. Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, girl.
Great to hear. Now, I talked a little bit about Farmscape last week because I was saying Laura was going to be a guest. So what can you tell us about Farmscape?
Well, we are California's largest urban farming company. So what that means is we design, install, and maintain urban farms from just a few raised beds at your home all the way to big rooftop urban farms for corporate campuses.
So for the first part is the home gardening. And this is something if you do not have, well, the first part is if you've never gardened before, sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. And there's great books out there. If you look on the internet, you can find thousands of pages and not sure where to start. So Farmscape is one of those places that you can start out with. So what do you guys do for the home gardener?
Well, before we get to that, am I like breathing tacos right in your face?
No, you're doing really good.
Would you lie to me?
Well, I will say I've been on a radio show where I've eaten a burrito live, so I would probably tell you.
Because when we were setting this up for your listeners at home, we were sitting like a good 6 feet away from each other, and I was eating a nice burrito bowl, and now we're like 2 feet away from each other, and I want to answer your questions about my company because this is a great opportunity for me, but all I can think about is like I'm breathing onions directly in her face.
We are totally fine over here.
Well, do you think that maybe the folks at home can just smell this interview from where they sit based on my description thus far?
Maybe. So she was eating this wonderful burrito bowl, and I was just staring at it going, that looks really good.
I'm so sorry. And I should have just called and said, dude, you want a burrito bowl? Because I'm going to get a burrito bowl, but I was hungry and I couldn't think beyond my own sphere. Anyway, why would you want to do this on your with Farmscape? Yeah, like you said, if you go online, there's a million different avenues you can go. You can do biodynamic farming or square foot gardening. You can grow this sort of food or that sort of food. And you go and you open Sunset and it's super beautiful and you look outside at your garden and it's not looking like that. And so what I think we do really well is make everything easy and we make it all make sense. So when you purchase a Farmscape raised bed, we have our own premium organic soil blend that already has compost worked into it. So you don't have to then figure out what the right compost is or the right fertilizer. We just tell you and it's already in there. We do our drip irrigation very specifically. And if you're maintaining the garden on your own, we show you how to adjust it and how to test to see if the water's enough. And then at the end of it, either we're going to be maintaining the garden and planting the right things, the right spacing, all in the right order, or we're handing you a crop guide so you can go to the nursery and pick the right things out for the season and your microclimate. And at the end of the experience, you should be set up to succeed. And the next steps very clearly outlined.
So here's what I've done with my raised beds, and I've talked about raised beds before. I had to hire someone to build them. And then I also had to hire someone to put in the drip system or to convert my sprinkler into a drip system. And then I planted some wonderful plants in there, but too close. And I made every single mistake that's out there. And it's all part of the learning process, and it's okay to make mistakes. And I keep saying it's okay to kill plants as part of that learning process. I kill more than most people, so let me be your expert and tell you what not to do. But this is why you come to the experts. They make you have a successful garden for the year. So you guys do a monthly thing, a weekly thing, or you get them set up so they can garden on their own?
Yes. Yeah, there's the weekly service. So we come by every week for a set rate that includes materials. So it's the same all year round, usually between $40 and $100 a week. And while that might seem pricey to some folks, the way I suggest they look at it is it's not just a landscaping service. You can come out and learn from us. And that's actually what I would really prefer because I'm an environmentalist. So I don't want to be driving to your house every week. I want you to learn how to farm, and then I want you to fire me, and because you've learned so much and you can do it on your own. But some people, they work 2 jobs, or both them and their spouse works. And they've got kids, they're busy, and that's great. They want to grow their own food. They don't have the time for it. They hire us. Another method is you can take care of it on your own, and we can stop by once a month or once a quarter and just give you a little advice and some suggestions on what to do over the next period you're maintaining it. And that does not include materials. And then there's the Via Con Dios approach where we just put the garden in. And you, at the end of the day, there's nothing planted in it. We just install it so you've got the irrigation and soil correct. It's laid out correctly. And then you take it from there.
Now, the nice thing about raised beds is I keep talking about if you're older, you don't have to bend down. There's easier to reach. Less work that you're doing. If you're in a wheelchair, you can still have access to the garden beds. If you're a little kid, you can just walk right up to it and use it. So there's so many. I like raised beds because, well, I just really like them. I'll say that over and over again. But they're really easy to maintain. And you guys are using redwood. Is this so? You have one main set for the raised beds. And what kind of raised beds are you using?
We really promote the redwood raised beds. Redwood lasts a nice long while, usually 5 to 10 years. And we try to isolate it so it's not going to be sitting in the middle of your lawn. We try to put a little moat of gravel or mulch around your raised beds. And if you think about that, all the reasons you mentioned for having raised beds are absolutely right, but they're also better for keeping pests out. Because if you think about a slug or a snail, and they're leading their terrible lives in the ground, And they're, all of a sudden confronted with this like massive Sahara desert of gravel, and then to go up the side of a raised bed before they get to anything green. So you can actually minimize the pests that you have with a raised bed. And so you can keep things that kind of go over the raised bed from getting in. But then also, if you have gophers, you can put gopher wire underneath the raised bed and staple it in, and then you've got nothing coming up underneath it. And if you don't have gophers now, plant a garden, and then you will get gophers, most likely, because if you open a salad bar, you get customers, so.
And I have to agree with that one completely. I have built gardens in the grounds, and they end up with so many issues. And it's not going to happen for everywhere, and it's going to depend on where you are and the time of year and the place. But raised beds, I find, are just so much easier. You do get less bug issues. Slugs typically are going to, if they have to go through mulch, if they have to go up the raised bed, they're going to look for a different food source. Mm-hmm. They aren't going to have to go after your beautiful tomato plants or whatever you have. And it's the same way with container gardening. Raised beds just seem to be a way to contain this nice organic soil or compost in it. You don't have to usually retreat your soil every year. You usually add into it. You add more compost, you add more beneficials into it, but you don't have to redo it every single year. So it's kind of self-sustaining. Redwood is one of my favorite materials to use. It's non-treated, and it lasts a lot longer than some of the other treated stuff out there. And if you read on some of those reports, you don't want treated wood for your raised beds.
No, it's super gross. There's like formaldehyde and stuff in it, isn't there? I haven't looked into
that and some other nasty, nasty stuff. So yeah, you have to remember this also. What material are you using? So redwood is typically your go-to material if you're wanting to use wood.
When you were writing the labels on organic pesticides, so do you know what they're treating the wood with right now? The pressure treated wood?
I don't off the top of my head. There used to be this huge list, and some of it's carcinogenic. Some of it will just leach into your groundwater, or it's going to leach into your garden bed. You just don't know what it is. And that's why I don't recommend it. That's why it's not recommended. And that's why you keep seeing those pallet gardens, and I keep shaking my head going, no, don't do that unless it's not treated.
Yeah, that's pretty gross. We also do them out of steel stock tanks. That's fine. You drill holes at the bottom of those and use that. Another way, and this is really specific to the backyard, if you've got a backyard and you've got masonry stone or flagstone all over it, I've had people make them out of those materials, and then we just come back and fill them in.
So yeah, and there's always other materials you can do it with. But if you're working with a yard, you say you have a nice space, it's nice sun, it's the perfect place to do a garden. It sounds like you're always going to recommend the raised beds with the redwood.
Well, my experience lies primarily in California, where we've got this heavy clay soil in a lot of the urban areas. And so, like you said, if you are treating it every year and amending the soil and turning it over, it's a lot of work. And then when we get these rains like we get up here in the Bay Area, it just all washes away and the clay stays. So by doing the raised beds, you're preserving your labor. And like you said, just filling it in every year. I'm a big fan of the raised beds, if you can't tell. You just get better food. You just get better crops in a smaller amount of space. It's not a total mess.
Yes, this is why we love raised beds. So part of what Farmscape does is they promote all organic gardening. So you guys actually give them the tools, or give your customers the tools, either with you guys doing it or for them the information on what products would be best for their garden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we maintain all of our gardens with organic pesticides. So, just the standard safer brand insecticidal soap for aphids, BT for larvae. But the main thing that we encourage our farmers to do is just use their hands and remove the insects from the crops. I mean, we're not talking about huge farms here. So if it's 2 12 by 4 raised beds, that's enough that you can go through and in an hour's time look under most of the leaves and pull any of the tomato hornworms or cabbage loopers or aphids off the crops themselves. And that way you just don't have to spray as much. Even though it's organic, it's like...
And this is one of the reasons I suggest scouting your garden every day. Just a few minutes every day. You can always spray products out there, but picking them off, and I'll tell you, I've smashed a lot of caterpillars in my life, but picking them off and getting rid of them is going to be the fastest way to get rid of them. And then eventually you're going to want to spray them because there's going to be babies that are going to be planted. There's going to be eggs. There's going to be a few different life cycles out there, but always do that scouting and just a few minutes every day. See what's out there. See what the plants look like. Are they looking funky? Do they need something? Do they look amazing? Let's hope they look amazing. But if there's something going on, just take a few minutes just to glance out there.
Yeah, and when I first started farming professionally, I had a really hard time. I was vegan, and that's what brought me to this. And I stopped being vegan after about a week because gophers were eating my food, and it was like, it was on, I wanted to kill these guys and not eat them and not use their bodies for anything useful. I just wanted them dead, And so if you're a sensitive sort and you're picking these caterpillars off the tomatoes and you're feeling a little squeamish about squishing them, like, that's okay. You can put them in a bucket and you can take them to the park, and let them go there. Eventually, though, I think that most people come to realize that while gardening is a very sweet pastime, the main business of the garden is sex, food, death. That's what it's all about, So you get to kind of see these very base instincts kind of get played out. And like those caterpillars, they're there to eat your food. So they got to go.
I love that. Sex, food, and death.
That's
I'm going to use that a few times.
That's the whole thing. Sex, food, death. What are we eating? Who are we sleeping with? And then we die. That's it.
There we go. There's the breakdown of gardening and life. I love that. I'm kind of speechless. I'm like, yeah, you're totally right. I'm going to be using that from now on. I'll have to quote you on that one.
It's yours.
Sounds great on that one. So Farmscape is based in LA and also the Bay Area. They've been around for about 7 years now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we started in 2008 in Claremont, California, and then expanded to Los Angeles in 2009-ish. And yeah, so we've been kicking it ever since, and we're right around 400 projects down in LA that we've installed. We maintain about half of them. We have a staff of 10 in LA, installing, selling, and maintaining all those gardens. And we just expanded to the Bay Area. We opened 2 weeks ago, and we're on we just sold project number 4 up here.
And I saw Laura at the San Francisco Flower and Garden Show, and she had a setup with one of the raised beds and a little bit of information about Farmscape. And I was like, I need to talk to this person. This is exactly the kind of thing that hopefully my listeners, you guys out there, are into, and you want to learn more about this. So you also mentioned that you do commercial or large scale farms. So what are some of these projects you've worked on?
Commercial installations right now make up about 10% of our projects. Most of what we do is at the home, but what I'm really excited about is doing rooftop farms, campus farms, farms at country clubs, and getting this whole different group of people into urban farming. Because when you think of urban farming, like, you think of like the people with the canvas bags from NPR, to some degree, and getting like groups like the Jonathan Club, which is one of the oldest social clubs in Los Angeles, involved in urban farming, to me is like, wow, we've really gotten this to go mainstream if the Jonathan Club is into it. So that project is up on the rooftop of the J Club in downtown LA. It's on this great old turn of the century building. And they've converted one of their tennis courts up there to be this massive, it's like 60 raised bed urban farm that they grow food for their 3 restaurants within in the club. And it started with like just 5 raised beds, and they were so into it, and they got so excited to see on their menu at their restaurant that it was grown right there, and they got such a huge response. They built this massive urban farm up there that's now the largest urban farm in Los Angeles, and it's the largest rooftop garden in LA as well.
And that's amazing. Now, I know you guys do a lot of home use stuff, and I always seem to hone in on some of these commercial things because I personally want to see more of these urban farms, more of these restaurants using things. And if you've listened, and as you know, I've talked about John Ash, how they now grow their own microgreens. They have their own farm. I mean, it's picking up. And I am out in Sonoma County, and that's where John Ash is. And we're in this huge farmland, and there's all these people doing it. But there's also this urban area. We're talking the Bay Area. We're talking LA. And as you know, the show is based out of Long Beach. I know a lot of you live around there. You're stuck in that traffic. You have to drive a long way to see some of this fresh food. So you can find it in community gardens. You can find it in backyards where you guys have built some of these projects. Or you find these amazing restaurants or communities that are getting these installations put in.
Yeah, and that's cool that a lot of your listeners are down in Long Beach. I didn't think about that. I was down in LA for 7 years, and I want to poke the bear in the zoo a little bit here, like, because you'd think LA would be like the hub of all this sort of activity. And while LA, talks a good game about sustainability, I haven't seen a lot of support from the politicians in LA to really put do any sort of legislating to enable more urban farming. So that would be really exciting to see. Up here in the Bay Area, people are so much more willing politicians.
And it's amazing how much more urban gardening stuff we have in LA. I just moved out, or I'm sorry, not in LA, in the Bay Area.
I was like, huh?
No, in the Bay Area. And I just moved out here, and I've probably talked about this on the show before. Like, my sister helps run the farmers market, the Ferry Building in San Francisco. And we get to meet all these urban farmers and regular farmers that bring their produce into it. But you have a lot more willing politicians. They want to convert these old lots, and you can put them into community gardens, and you're not going to be afraid that my land's going to be taken away immediately. There's a lot more push for it, which is fantastic. There's so many programs out there. There's edible school programs, and I just hear a lot more of them in the Bay Area compared to LA, it seems like.
Oh, sure. And, in San Francisco, you've got Eli Zegas at Spur, who is their policy guy for urban ag, who wrote the bill, it's AB something or another, that allows for people who own empty lots to gift them to urban ag for, I believe it's 3 years, and get their property taxes assessed as though their property was worth $12,000. They get these huge cuts in property taxes. Now, my understanding is that each of the local municipalities have to write their own version of that to implement it into their blah, blah, blah. I really don't understand politics, but the fact that San Francisco has Eli Zegas at Spur writing bills around urban ag, and then Hannah Schulman, who's the new urban farming coordinator for the city of San Francisco, it is just so encouraging. Because for a while I was honestly like, man, I really hope this isn't a flash in the pan. Like, it's going pretty well right now. The phone is ringing. We're pretty busy. We're installing Project 400. But every now and then you're just like, like, am I the skip it of like the 2010s? Like, God, I hope not.
No, I was explaining at Christmas time, or maybe it was Thanksgiving, to my family of what I've been working on. And one of my family members kind of looks at me and he says, whatever you're doing is a fad. And I was like, well, thank you. And my dad's sitting next to me. He's like, so was the pet rock, and the guy made $1 million. So what else do you got to say? It was really funny, but I'm like, it's not a fad. You live in Arizona. Where do you think your food comes from? And we start having this discussion of, well, it comes from the grocery store. And you're like, okay, so where does it come from before then? Have you tasted a tomato from your backyard? Well, probably not, because you don't grow them. But have you tasted them from the backyard or from the grocery store? What do you think goes in the grocery store? So you're educating people about food as well as gardening, it seems like.
So you don't think we're like disco?
I hope not. I have gotten, I don't even want, no, we are not a fad. We're here to stay.
I'm glad for that vote of confidence. I think so too. And, I think you put it well, that it's about food, and people just really love to eat.
True. Now, if people, and I'm guilty of being in a hurry and probably not eating the best stuff all the time, but when you start investing in real food, and I'm not talking fast food, that is fake food. It's trash.
What about In-N-Out?
Every once in a while, it's okay. There's different levels. If I'm going to talk to a burger, McDonald's is absolutely disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
In-N-Out every once in a while, yeah, you just got to do it.
Oh, you got to have In-N-Out. Like once or twice a year, like when you're coming back from the beach.
Yeah, once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about your food or what goes in your tomato was picked green and it's gas and it ends up this beautiful looking fruit on the grocery store shelf that tastes like something red. And then you install your own garden and you spend all summer growing these tomatoes and you cut open your first tomato and you eat it. It tastes 1,000 times different. You're going to realize, like, this is what sugar levels are. This is what bricks. This is what your produce is supposed to taste like. This is why we garden.
Yeah, and like they say that kids hate their vegetables. Well, kids aren't dummies. Most vegetables taste like crap because you mentioned bricks testing. There's no sugar left in the foods. And so when you grow beautiful homegrown produce, and it is really naturally sweet, and the leaves of the kale are really tender and not these like hard or lifeless, limp, sad things on this poor kid's plate that he's got to eat before he can go do something that's enjoyable. It's like, yeah, of course that kid doesn't want to eat vegetables, But if you have a vegetable garden in your backyard and your kid has these baby plants that he puts in the garden and that he or she maintains every week, and then he or she gets to go out and pull the caterpillars off of it and pick the kale and bite little holes in the leaves so they can have like eyes and make kale masks with it, and eat snap peas and hang out there and maybe see a praying mantis. It's like, oh, all of a sudden this isn't this terrible burden that mom and dad has placed on me. It's like, oh, this is what I do when I'm out playing in the yard. I grab some snap peas and I snack on them. And it doesn't become this like push-pull between parents and kids.
And this is why we garden. And this is why we get kids involved with gardening as soon as we can. This is why we have school gardens, restaurant gardens, backyard gardens. So if people want to find out more information for Farmscape, where is the best place to visit?
Visit our website. It is Farmscape, FARMSCAPE, gardens.com.
And they also have a Facebook page, which I'll put a link. That one's Farmscape. But visit the website first. That's the best place to get the information. They have a newsletter sign up too. And I signed up recently, and I get these nice little updates every once in a while. And I make sure to read those. So I put those starred in my inbox of I want that email. So I'd say thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming over.
Yeah, I've had a great time. I got to come over to Laura's house. We got to talk about gardening, Farmscape, what's going on in LA for what they do, and the upcoming stuff in the Bay Area. So visit their website for more information. I'll be sure to post the link up when this goes on the blog post on the website that's finally up again, which is agirlinagarden.com. Finally got fixed. You can check that one out. So thank you very much. And until next time, this is Emily on A Girl in a Garden on dfcradio.com.
Pulling weeds and picking stones, man is made of dreams and bones. Feel the need to grow my own, 'cause the time is close at hand. Rain for grain, sun and rain, find my way in nature's chain. Tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. Inch by inch, row by row.
We're listening to DFCRadio.com.
Here at Green Grow, we take organic gardening seriously. With our mycorrhizae products, you'll increase growth and help reduce the need to replace old, worn-out soil. We help provide electrolytes and maximize nutrient intake to make your indoor garden lush and green. So give your plants the strength that they need and breathe life into your soil with GreenGrow. Find us at your local nursery or visit us at thegreengrow.com. That's thegreen.com.
You are listening to the beautiful Emily Walter on DFCRadio.com.
A girl in a garden quick tip. Bees only become aggressive if their hive is being threatened. Many gardeners enjoy tending their garden while bees hover nearby.
Close my eyes, let the whole thing pass me by. There is no time to waste asking why.
Emily here from A Girl in a Garden, and it is spring cleaning time. So that means I'm cleaning, taking stuff to Goodwill, and just trying to get rid of stuff in general. I'm not sure really how it acquires, but it just happens to acquire. So I'm cleaning stuff around the house, and I go to grab some bleach, and I go to grab, some vinegar. Not good combination. So today, we're going to talk about things that should not be mixed together. And this is especially important when you have quite a few different cleaning products like I end up with, and you are cleaning your grow room, you're cleaning your bathroom, you're cleaning whatever. Not all compounds should be mixed together. And I just completely binge watched Breaking Bad for the last few days, so apparently chemistry is on my mind. But there are quite a few things that don't go good with, say, bleach, for instance. The first one on the list is bleach plus vinegar. And vinegar is a great natural household cleaner, but it should not be mixed with bleach. You can get toxic chlorine gas. So both of them are good disinfectants. You think they go together. But they should never be used at the same time. And the reason is adding a weak acid to bleach will release toxic chlorine vapors. And what's the worst that could happen? You can get a nasty chemical burn, especially of your eyes and lungs. And that does not sound good at all to me. Another one that should not be mixed. Bleach is a common theme. Bleach and ammonia. Toxic vapors. And I need to brush up on some chemistry and some of these big words. So be sure to check the ingredients list of your cleaning products to ensure you're not unknowingly using these products together. Tons of product are out there. Some say ammonia free, some say don't, some say bleach, so you kind of can get them confused. So for instance, Windex comes in both ammonia and ammonia free formula. And Drano is another one. Some of them do contain bleach. So when you're cleaning the bathroom, make sure to check that you are not using ammonia and bleach at the same time. So inhaling these vapors can cause respiratory damage and throat burns. And what's the worst that could happen, you say? If ammonia is present in excess, toxic and potentially explosive liquid hydrazine may be formed. And there has been several stories, but you can look up on the internet. There was a man who died of mixing ammonia, bleach, and Drano to clean his toilet. Another one that should not be mixed together. And another common household cleaners. Rubbing alcohol and bleach. You get chloroform. So ordinary household bleach contains sodium hycralate, and that was horrible, which reacts with ethanol or isopropyl alcohol to produce chloroform, hydrochloric acid, and other compounds. So these two household products are a big no-no. What's the worst that could happen, you say? You could damage your nervous systems, eyes, lungs, skin, liver, kidneys. Extremely high levels of exposure may result in death, while lower levels could result in dizziness and nausea, according to the EPA. Now here is another two cleaners that I use quite often in my house, and they should not be used together either. Hydrogen peroxide and vinegar. And you can get peracetic acid. These two ingredients are commonly touted as natural cleaning methods, but combining them in the same container may result in a corrosive acid. So you can use them on the same surface separately while cleaning, but don't mix them in the same container. And what's the worst that could happen, you say? Health risks aren't actually well known, but in high enough concentration, you can get very irritation of the skin, eyes, nose, throat, lungs, and cause potential permanent scarring in the skin, cornea, and throat. That sounds absolutely horrible. Another two that are common, baking soda and vinegar. That just equals a bad cleaning solution. So they're great to be used separately, not together. Baking soda is a basic and vinegar is acidic. Putting them together, you get mostly water and sodium acetate. What's the worst that could happen? You could waste your time cleaning the entire bathroom and it doesn't do anything at all. So certain things don't go together because they're potentially toxic, and other things just because they're bad cleaning solutions. Here's another thing that doesn't go together, which I am recording on my Zoom right now, doing exactly what I'm not supposed to be doing. 2 different battery brands. And they shouldn't be used together because it can make corrosion. Different battery brands might maintain different chemical compounds and varying voltages. When one battery dies, why is it always one battery that dies? The other battery could continue discharging electricity, causing the batteries to leak. And what's the worst that could happen? You could damage your sensitive, expensive electronic devices. And actually, now that I just said that, I've had this happen on my Zoom before. I've had some weird batteries I've had to throw out. So maybe I should take that theory and put it into action. Another thing that does not go together, medicine and grapefruit juice. Not quite gardening related, but good information. Many over-the-counter and prescription drugs, you risk increasing the absorption of a drug if you take it with grapefruit juice. So a typical dosage could become a lethal overdose. A lot of times you have time-release stuff, and it's supposed to, time release over amount of time. And if you drink grapefruit juice, you can get too much at once. Here's another one. This should be obvious. Red Bull and milk. Why would you put those together ever? What you could get? Stomach aches. Imagine that. And this would be a fun science experiment that I might need to do. If you mix them together, it rapidly curdles. I am not sure why anyone would need to actually test that one, but it'd be fun with kids. Obviously, that stuff is disgusting. But the acid of the energy drink will combine with the milk protein, and it produces a salt, causing the casein to lose suspension and clump together. Worst that could happen, you'll vomit, which sounds pretty basic. Here's another one that's on most painkiller information tabs on alcohol. Ibuprofen and alcohol can make a torn stomach lining. Ibuprofen can cause tears in the stomach lining if taken on an empty stomach. Alcohol heightens the risk, and it's bad if you are prone to ulcers. And it could lead to stomach irritation and bleeding, as well as ulcers. And again, I should probably take that word of advice because I take it on an empty stomach way too often. Another bad combination. St. John's wort and contraceptives. It makes an ineffective birth control. St. John's wort is a natural antidepressant that you can find on like the health food aisle. It's a supplement you take, and it might increase the breakdown of estrogen, which is a hormone present in many brands of oral contraceptive. And the worst could happen, you could get pregnant. Another side effect is increased sensitivity to the sun. Another thing that does not go together, and if you're a mushroom hunter, this is important: morel mushrooms and alcohol. You can actually get morel poisoning. And especially when you're picking any mushrooms, wild morel mushrooms always need to be cooked thoroughly before eating. They contain high hydrazine toxins, and even when cooked, can lead to adverse effects and mild intoxication when eaten with alcohol. And you can get, worse that could happen, sickening, intoxicating effect that can last a day. And my dad and I like to go mushroom hunting, and we've done that for years. And my mom is deathly allergic to wild mushrooms. So morels just make her sick thinking of it. Some people, you have to be careful with eating certain foods, wild mushrooms being one of them, and alcohol, be careful with that. Here's another thing not to mix, and this was brought up earlier: antibiotics and dairy. Reduced efficacy. So actually, the calcium in dairy interferes with the absorption of the antibiotic, so it's less effective. You can still eat meals containing dairy, but just make sure you don't take the antibiotics with the dairy or within a few hours of each other. Husband, don't take your antibiotics with a cup of milk. So those are a few things that don't go together. And it kind of kicked off from me cleaning and going, oh, let me just use some of this. And I had to stop. And I remember my mom telling a story of my godmother using some products, and she got some kind of chemical burn because she mixed them together, not thinking. So it is something to definitely be aware of there are certain products, especially cleaning products, that do not go together. So those are your do not mixes. And until next time, this is Emily on DFCRadio.com.
You're listening to A Girl in the Garden on DFCRadio.com.
We're listening to DFCRadio.com.
This is Gardening in 2 Minutes. We all don't have, or most times, the availability to have full sun all day long to grow our garden in. But you can grow a number of vegetables in partial shade. Partial shade meaning 4 to 6 hours of adequate sunlight.
So when you think about this, you have to think about where you're planting and what you have to deal with. So if you're planting your garden now, you might think you have full sunlight, but once a tree fills in or some brush or some bushes, you may have to think about some partial shade vegetables.
Partial shade vegetables can include potatoes, beets, Brussels sprouts, Swiss chard, kohlrabi, just to name a few. You can bok choy. You can go to your favorite search engine, and there's over 40 partial shade loving plants.
Then there's different herbs as well, such as thyme, tarragon, coriander, which is cilantro.
Which we were very successful at growing in partial shade last year because it is a very heat sensitive crop.
Then there's things like sweet potatoes, but those will grow smaller. And there's even raspberries and blueberries. And again, a lot of times if it's a fruitine type vegetable or fruit, it's just going to grow smaller.
Going to grow smaller in partial shade. But you also want to have good soil nutrients in those areas. Now, based on the type of location that you are having the partial shade in the morning is going to be a much softer light than partial shade in the evening as well. So keep that in mind. So don't try to grow full sun plants like tomatoes or peppers in partial shade. You're going to be very disappointed. If you have an area where partial shade is where you have partial shade at, do your research. You can be very productive in the crops that you grow in those areas. You just have to know what crops to plant and when to plant them. For more information on growing in partial shade, our weekly video productions, as well as our free downloadable digital quarterly magazine, you can find all that information at
thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.
For the health conscious organic gardener worldwide. For Gardening in 2 Minutes, I'm Joy Baird.
And I'm Holly Baird.
Here at Green Grow, we take organic gardening seriously. With our mycorrhizae products, you'll increase growth and help reduce the need to replace old, worn-out soil. We help provide electrolytes and maximize nutrient intake to make your indoor garden lush and green. So give your plants the strength that they need and breathe life into your soil with Green Grow. Find us at your local nursery or visit us at thegreengrow.com. That's the green, GRO.com.
Welcome back to A Girl in a Garden on tfcradio.com. This is Emily, your host. And a big thank you to Laura from Farmscape. More information can be found at farmscapegardens.com or on Facebook, facebook.com/farmscape. Great information. And really cool company that they're working on. They're based in LA and Northern California. So definitely check them out and follow them online. So yesterday I'm reading on some of the forums, and I guess we're going to talk a little gossip right now. There has been rumors circulating around that large companies are starting to purchase hydroponic companies, which is absolutely true. I used to work at a company called AgriQuest that did a product called Serenade, and I became a Bayer Crop Science employee. Let's see, what's another one? Actinovate used to be through Natural Industries, which became Novozymes, which now is in a partnership with Monsanto. And this list can actually go on and on and on as more money comes into this industry and corporate takeovers, and just lots of changes are going to happen. So here's the rumor. GH and Vermicrop were purchased. And guess what? It's actually true. They actually did get purchased. They were purchased by a company called Hawthorne Gardening Co. And it is a subsidiary of Scott's Miracle-Gro that focuses on emerging areas of indoor and urban gardening. So interesting, big news. We'll see how that kind of goes over in the hydroponic gardening community, because GH and Vermicrop, in my mind, are both very staple, well-known brands. I use both of them in my garden and love them. So we'll see what happens with that. And as this business changes, you're going to see a lot more companies change hands and become a little bit more corporately structured. So what else is going on? Another thing. There's a new magazine dropping, and you can look for a Girl in a Garden ad. So they are having, let's see, Andrew. This is my friend Andrew. He's very much excited about releasing the much anticipated issue of Weed Reviewer. And the magazine will be released at the 2015 High Times Cannabis Cup in April. So Weed Reviewer magazine was founded to show the other side of the cannabis culture. The side with kids, mortgage, and a dog. A more wholesome approach to the global cannabis education, and they hope they can make a change with knowledge, understanding, and trustworthy information. So weedreviewer.com, that's going to be dropping pretty soon from my friend Andrew over at Weed Reviewer magazine. So the first one they're going to be releasing will have, I believe, let's see. Okay, they're starting printing with 40,000 copies of the first issue. And they'll be giving away copies at the Cannabis Cup and distributing to retailers in 50 states. Plus, other countries are planned. So it sounds like a great release. A Girl in a Garden does have an ad in there. So go definitely check out and see what they are working on. And you can also look them up on Facebook. They do have a Facebook page. Type in Weed Reviewer Magazine, Weed Reviewer being one word. And go check them out and see what Andrew's working on and see how Weed Reviewer Magazine might change some of the common misconceptions of cannabis. And it is everyday users and people with mortgages and houses and kids and dogs, and they happen to smoke weed too. So really looking forward to the release of that. That's going to be at the High Times Cup coming up in April. Now, as for next week, still trying to nail down a few interviews, some call-in interviews to talk about some urban gardening projects that are going on. And I know this weekend I have 3 4x4 raised beds that I need to plant. I believe it was 2 weeks ago I de-weeded and prepped it with some vermipro soil, got everything nice and ready for planting. So I'm guilty. I have not started seeds. So I think my best bet would be to head over to the farmer's market on Saturday in Santa Rosa and pick up some plant starts and maybe stop at one of my actually favorite independent garden centers, which is Harmony Farm Supply out in Sebastopol, and get some plant starts and start growing some stuff because it's April 1st. You are past that frost date. So if you have any questions or suggestions, comment on my Facebook page or send me an email, girlinagarden@gmail.com. And until next week, this is Emily here. Everyone, happy gardening. And I am signing off. So Emily from A Girl in a Garden on dfcradio.com.